Hello, everyone. My name is Vlad. I'm a third-year student at the Faculty of Philology and Journalism at Poltava National Pedagogical University. I'm studying philology and translation. Today, I'm going to show you a presentation of my understanding of Haruкі Murakami's works and the problem of loneliness in his works. I'll start with the short biography of the author. Haruкі Murakami was born in Kyoto, Japan in 1949. He grew up in Kobe and then moved to Tokyo, where he attended Wasaba University. After college, Murakami opened a small jazz bar, which he and his wife ran for 7 years. His first novel, Hear the Wind Sing, won the Gonzo Literature Prize for budding writers in 1979. He followed this success with 2 sequels, Pinball 1973 and The Wild Sheep Chase, which altogether from the trilogy of the Rat. Murakami is also the author of the novels Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The End of the World, Norwegian Wood, Dance, 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 South of the Border, West of the Sun, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, Kafka on the Shore, and others. My project is based on the 2 works, Norwegian Wood and The Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The End of the World. In a general sense, the concept of loneliness can be divided into 2 perceptions. The first one is positive, in the sense of temporary short-term solitude and isolation from the outside world and contact with other people to master your own emotions, experiences, or basically rest. The second one is negative, which is more often used to define the word loneliness. It's a forced solitude, the causes of which are many. This feeling arises from a long-term superficial communication with the society, which does not really have a special emotional law. In the worst cases, in its absence. Sometimes this feeling occurs with the young people who could not find a suitable partner, a second half, find their love, which is a common problem in the works of Haruкі Murakami. The concept of loneliness in The Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The End of the World. It's hard to say that the problem of loneliness in these works appears as the major. I believe that one of the main ideas of the work is the problem of hopelessness and uncontrollability of human existence. It seems that the whole story of the main character is a complete demonstration of this concept. At the same time, he doesn't really worry about it and doesn't try to run away and avoid. He just peacefully watches what is happening while drinking whiskey. However, to consider in more detail the basic structure of the plot lines, we can see that the protagonist does not have a really close relationship with the people surrounding him. From the very beginning of the work, we know that he was once married, but after the divorce, he could not find anyone. So can we say that the protagonist has come to terms with his loneliness? It's impossible to know this unequivocally, but while reading the work, it seemed to me that the main character, perhaps forced, but enjoys his life. Throughout the work, it's clear that the only thing the protagonist really wants is to return to his albeit completely destroyed apartment, read his favorite book, take a shower, and finally have some sleep. This atmosphere culminates when he gets an understanding that he will forever be in another world. In the last days of his stay in the real world, he does not try to have time for everything possible. He peacefully continues his life. And even if he has to sit in the laundry room for a few hours while watching the strange nature of snails, which disappear, then appear after the rain, he will do it. In the same magical fictional world, created in the imagination of the hero himself, he gradually loses his shadow, loses his eye, like a lonely man who gradually moves away from people, from a real world, and then could not return, as no one can escape from an imaginary city surrounded by a wall. At the end, the protagonist remains in his own fictional, made-for-himself world. And the concept of loneliness in a Norwegian Wood. Comparing these works, I noticed their contrast in understanding of the concept of loneliness. Unlike the first novel, the protagonist is actually lonely, which oppresses and aggravates his existence. From the very beginning of the work, it becomes clear that he is estranged from the general environment and society. Mostly, he communicates with two friends. His friends Kizuki and Naoka, a loving couple who spend all their time together, have known each other since childhood. But even in this seemingly happy time, he feels overflows. After moving to Tokyo, the storyline develops rapidly, and the protagonist gains social, superficial connections with his surroundings in the dormitory and the university. Then there is a sudden unexpected meeting with Naoka. They have not seen each other for a while. They meet in the evenings and walk around the streets of Tokyo. They don't talk much, they seem to be missing something, so there is no dialogue. Eventually they become very close, but then Naoka disappears and Watanabe suffers. Having a relationship with a university friend, Watanabe feels attached to Naoka. He can't forget her, and he writes letters every week. It seems that he does it out of respect, but personally to me, it seems that this is a really emotional connection for him. Basically, he loves her. So having a university friend and a few acquaintances, he still remains lonely. Only with Naoka, he feels really needed and important. An interesting phenomenon when a person feels lonely while in society. However, the problem is not only the loneliness of the main character. Naoka also has this feeling. She has lost her love, a person who was really important to her. She can't forget him. It seemed to me that because of this, she cannot really love Watanabe, which makes them both suffer. I think this is the main problem of loneliness and hopelessness in the work Norwegian Wood. They both suffer each in their own way. They cannot continue and truly love. Besides, a big part of work is Watanabe's relationship with Midori. He likes her, maybe he even loves her. But also, he cannot deal with this feeling, which makes her suffer too. At the end, we get three real people who have become hostages of this situation. They're in their own right, but because of this, they hurt each other. So in this work, the concept of urban loneliness is very clear when there is a bunch of people and acquaintances around, but it's not possible to establish really close and essential connection with them. So it's the protagonist who often has temporary and superficial connection with others, but this is nothing more than an attempt to suppress and blunt the emotional pain he feels without being able to meet his beloved. And the last part of my work is loneliness as an irreversible process. One of the main ideas in terms of the loneliness of both works can be highlighted as the irreversibility of this process. During the period of isolation and alienation from society, a person loses basic, natural skills of communication and behavior in society, which in the long run makes it impossible to return. Of course, this is relative and affects everyone in their own way. However, it seems that in both works, this idea is quite clear. Like a wall from a magical city that does not let anyone to go out and oppresses the townspeople and the place and Naoka's place, no one physically keeps the inhabitants inside, but the chasm that grows between them and the real world during their stay becomes a difficult obstacle on the way to real life. However, Reiko, Naoka's older friend, who has been in the place for more than 7 years, becomes a ray of hope, which returns at the very end of the work to start working for her friend. But the question is if she managed to return to normal life at the end. I guess we will never know. So does the concept of loneliness in these works really reflect the real existence of certain people today, especially in understanding and features of the perspective of seeing this issue in Ukrainian and Japanese cultures? I would like you to share your vision and understanding of this concept. Thank you very much for your attention.